In this video, I'm going to be showing you all the mods I've made to my KLR to improve its off-road performance. Hi there and welcome to another Adventure Bikes Australia video. My name is Ben and I'm not an expert motorcycle rider or motorcycle mechanic in any way whatsoever. On a scale between dirt-oriented and road-oriented, the KLR is often criticised for its off-road performance. When I was looking into buying a bike, my goal was to ride to the tip of Cape York, and I was tossing up between a DR650 and the KLR. The DR is closer to the dirt end of our scale and is criticised for its on-road performance. So if I bought the KLR, I'd have to mod it to make it better off-road, but if I bought the DR, I'd have to mod it to make it better on-road. Unfortunately in Australia, the DR650 is dead. So when it came time to buy a new bike, my only option was the KLR. But that didn't bother me because that was the way I was leaning anyway. But with all that said, the problem remains, how do we make the KLR better off-road? Fortunately, the KLR has one of the biggest aftermarkets in the industry, so there's no shortage of things we can do to make the KLR better in the fun stuff. Just a quick disclaimer, this is not a sponsored video. I paid for all the following mods with my own money, bar the foot pegs. However, that company is not involved in the planning, production, or publication of this video in any way whatsoever. So the first question to answer is, why do we need all this protection on our bikes? Well, if you're venturing off-road, it doesn't matter how good a rider you are going to drop the bike. For me, I picked up some protection gear on the way home from the dealership with the bike still on the trailer. But being a returning rider, having ridden off-road for 10 years as a teenager, I felt like it was almost unnecessary for me. I mean, riding a bike is like riding a bike, right? And yet, the very first time I took my KLR off-road, I dropped it and it got its very first scratch. This one right here. And that was with the protection fitted. Without it, I would have destroyed the fairing for sure. So if you're buying a KLR to take off-road, there's 3 protection items that I consider to be essential. The first one is the bash plate. The KLR does come with a factory bash plate, but it's made of light plastic. I'd consider it a splash guard more than a bash plate. It's only going to last one decent hit, and I doubt it would actually offer much protection in that hit. Another reason a bash plate is essential is because Kawasaki, in their wisdom, decided to fit a sump plug to the bottom of the motor that sits out proud, just waiting, begging for a log or a rock to come along, tear it out, and you'll leave an oil slick bigger than the Exxon Valdez. I went with the SRC Adventure Moto bash plate because it's not only made of 4mm thick aluminium, but it also sits in such a way that the sump plug is effectively recessed and thereby safe from all those nasty logs and rocks. Staying with SRC, the next most essential piece of protection equipment you're going to need is a set of crash bars. One of the things that makes the KLR great as a tourer is these big, beautiful fairings. They protect the rider from wind buffeting and make the whole experience a lot less tiring. However, in an off-road incident, they are the first thing to break and they aren't cheap to replace. In fact, you've only got to drop the bike once and you're ahead. And trust me, you're going to drop this bike more than once. These SRC crash bars are made from 25mm steel tubing with a 2mm wall thickness and have proven themselves more than up to the job for me. Now, the Adventure model does come with factory Kawi crash bars, but if you have a look at them, they're really only an engine guard and they have nothing at all to protecting the fairings. The third and final essential protection item you need for your KLR is also going to protect yourself, and I'm talking about bark busters. The standard KLR hand guards are more like wind guards. They're made from thin, bendable plastic and won't offer you or your KLR any crash protection when you drop it. You can almost guarantee a broken lever if you drop your KLR with the standard hand guards on. Bark Busters offers an incredibly strong aluminium frame which connects to the bar ends and to the handlebars. This is what offers you and the KLR the protection in the crashes. Once you've selected the frame, you can then choose from dozens of plastic guards. They come in a variety of sizes, shapes and colours, so you can really personalise the look of your bike. For me, I went with the Storm Guards because they were the largest and they also offer the option of adding blinkers to them later, or at least they did until I dropped my bike once or twice. Alright, so tyres are probably the most important change you can make to a motorcycle to make it perform better off-road. If you have a new or near new KLR, you probably have the original Dunlop K750 tyres. These tyres are okay if you're just tackling the easy stuff and going at a gentlemanly pace. Otherwise, they wear really fast. Mine only lasted about 6 months and 3,000 kilometers. If you're hoping I'm going to tell you which tyres are best for you, I'm sorry to disappoint. Tyres are a completely personal choice. When it was time for me to replace mine, I was looking at getting into doing ram rallies and a lot of off-road trail riding. So I went super aggressive and got a Dunlop D606 on the rear and a Pirelli MT21 on the front. These are street legal knobby tyres and are classified as a 90-10. That is 90% off-road riding, 10% on-road. As you'd expect, they are so much better than the factory tyres off-road, but they are a real compromise on the road. And as it turns out, most of my riding is in fact on the road. As a result, these aren't wearing as well as I'd like either. So when it comes to choosing your tyres, remember to be honest with yourself about the type of riding that you're going to do, and you only get what you pay for. After tyres, the next thing to do that's going to give you big results is change the foot pegs. Now, I'm not too proud to say I was completely wrong about changing the foot pegs. When I was first getting into adventure riding, I watched all these videos of people raving about how good their pegs were. I thought it was, to be honest, but now that I've changed mine, I don't think I can go back. This is not to say that the factory Kawi foot pegs are rubbish, because they really aren't. But if you're riding off-road, larger off-road designed foot pegs just can't be beaten. You feel like you're standing on a platform rather than balancing on a stick, so it gives you more surface area to plant your weight, giving you greater control of your bike. There's a huge range of pegs available, starting at under $100 and climbing to around $400. Mine are on the cheaper end and I have no complaints. They're super easy to swap over, so anyone can do it. Just remember that if you do buy a pair that has removable pegs, that you Loctite them all in place, so your KLR doesn't rattle them all loose while you're out on the tracks. As with the stock tyres, the factory suspension on the KLR is good enough if you're going to be tackling basic terrains at gentlemanly speeds. So if you're an average sized person riding on average terrains at average speeds, you'll be just fine. All you need to do is adjust the suspension. However, if you're like me and you want to tackle some more adventurous terrain, a suspension upgrade dramatically increases the off-road performance of the KLR. In my first real attempt at trail riding on this bike, I found that the suspension was simply too soft. I was blowing through the stroke, hitting the bump stops and hitting the ground without much effort at all. By the end of that ride, it was clear I was going to have to do a suspension transplant. For my trusty KLR, I went with a front and rear kit from YSS. Up front, it involved a new set of springs and the addition of some preload adjusters. Now, I don't have rebound or compression, but the factory forks had zero adjustability, so I'm stoked to just have preload. The rear is a complete shock and spring replacement in one complete unit. You only have preload and rebound adjustment, same as the factory suspension, but the unit is far superior in every conceivable way. The kits do come with detailed instructions if you want to DIY it, but given that I'm not a mechanic and the first step said disable the ABS system, I decided to take mine to a suspension specialist and have them install it and set it up for me. And wow, what a difference it made to the KLR off-road. The front is very firm and direct and the rear is firmer as well. As a result, the bike feels much more confidence-inspiring off-road. So much so that I can even get away with giving the big girl some little jumps over the woe boys without bottoming out. Overall though, the biggest benefit is that I feel like I now have much more control over the bike off-road. Definitely money well spent. Now, we are well and truly into our midlife phase, so I've got a hard truth for you. It's going to be easier for you to lose 20 kilos than it is for your KLR to lose 20 kilos. That said, there are several things you can do to put your KLR on a diet. Some of the things I've done, most of them I haven't, much like my own weight loss strategies. The biggest thing I've done to reduce weight on my bike is put on the Stay in Tune exhaust pipe. By throwing on a Stay in Tune, you save 4.2 kilos and you add 2.2 kilowatts according to their website. I haven't run my bike on an actual dyno machine, but my butt loves it. Wait a minute. The next thing I've done is to swap out the foot pegs. In this case, I've put on the nice CNC off-road foot pegs I mentioned before. Not only do you get better control of your bike off-road, you can also save a couple of 100 grams. The last thing I've done to help the KLR reduce weight is to put on a tail tidy. It gets rid of that giant ugly plastic rear fender, and I'd estimate it saves about half the weight of the factory unit. And now let's talk about the things that you could do that I haven't done yet. You could swap out the factory battery for a lithium battery. You could remove the rear foot pegs. You could swap the mirrors for some double take style mirrors. You could replace the handlebars with something lighter. Then you could go all out and strip away all the fairings, headlight and windshield and go for a stripped back Gen 1 KLR look. I can't say how much weight your bike would lose after doing all that, but we'd have to be getting close to that 20 kilo mark. The last point I want to make is that 23 litres of fuel weighs a lot. And depending on your riding plans for the day, you might not need a full tank. So just putting 8 litres instead of 23 in it is going to save a lot of weight too. The next off-road mod may or may not be legal and may or may not void your warranty depending on where you live. As a result, I do not recommend doing either of the two things I'm about to talk about. In Australia, it's now illegal to sell a road-going motorcycle without ABS, and so all Gen 3 KLRs in the country have ABS. The drawback is that the ABS is non-switchable. Almost every other adventure bike and trail bike out there has a switch to turn off the ABS. Why we didn't get one on the KLR just defies explanation. But why is this a problem? Well, in steep downhill sections, we often want to lock the rear wheel, especially to try and slow the bike down as much as possible. With the ABS always active, this becomes impossible with the ABS system cycling the brakes on and off. The end result is that you end up speeding up on these declines and things can get out of control very quickly. Some people get around this by wiring in a switch so they can manually turn the ABS off. Other people pull the fuse out of the ABS when they're off-roading. I do not recommend doing either of those things as I cannot say for sure what the legal or insurance ramifications would be if you do. What I do in these situations is simply turn off the engine for those steep, nasty downhills. This allows me to essentially use the clutch as a brake using engine braking to slow the descent, and also allows me to lock up that back wheel if I need to, as the ABS doesn't come on when the bike is switched off. I don't know if this is considered a correct technique, so I don't really recommend you do this either. If you do know if it's an accepted technique or not, let me know in the comments below. Now let's talk about a few smaller mods that you might want to consider. And the first is a one-finger clutch, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a replacement arm mechanism which uses geometry to reduce the amount of force required to activate the clutch. This means that you can literally do it with one finger, leaving the rest to maintain strict control of the handlebars. Naturally, this offers more control on technical off-road sections. You'll often see this on trials bikes. I've seen claims ranging from a 40% reduction in force to 90%, with prices varying accordingly. Now another mod is the clutch bypass mod. This is a simple little plug and play option that's very cheap and incredibly easy to install. It looks almost like a fuse and plugs into the clutch mechanism at the handlebars. It reduces the amount of engine braking applied when letting off the throttle or changing gear. Some people like this mod as they feel it makes the bike more predictable and the sudden deceleration less violent to have to try and counter. I haven't done it because I personally like that engine braking, and once you get used to it, you can actually use it to your advantage quite well. The next off-road mod is folding mirrors. The most famous are the double take mirrors. They're great off-road because you can just fold them in so they don't get caught on branches and whatnot, and when you're finished, you just fold them back out again without needing to stop and readjust them. Now that we've talked about all these mods you can do to make your KLR better off-road, a little more power wouldn't go astray. Now fortunately, there's 3 mods you can do to get a little more horsepower and torque out of it. What's better? They're so easy, anybody can do it. In the next video, I'm going to show you exactly what those 3 mods are and exactly how to do them so that you can get more power out of your KLR too.